The evening kitchen was quiet. The plates made a soft clink as I put them away. The light over the sink was warm and small. When my daughter-in-law told me I was a burden, I folded the dish towel and smiled, so my son would not see my hands shake. Before I begin, I want to speak to you, the way I would if you were sitting at my table. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I want to picture your living room, your kitchen, your window, while I share mine. I am me, and I am going to tell you what happened in the simplest way I know. I will not shout. I will not blame. I will tell the truth as I lived it, the way a person does when the house has grown quiet and the tea has grown warm. Families are complicated. Hearts are soft and words can cut. Maybe you know this already. Maybe you have felt your hands shake too. I wish you were here with a cup in your hand. I would pass you a napkin, just in case this story finds some tender place inside you. I am not telling this to make anyone the villain. I am telling it because I have learned that love and pain often sit at the same table. They share the same spoon, and sometimes they spill. There is a will in this story. There is a house. There is my husband's voice kept safe in paper and ink. The house is theirs, he said near the end, when his hands were weak and his eyes were clear. At the time, I did not understand all that he meant. I only knew that he loved our son, and he loved me, and he was trying to hold us both. You will hear how those words changed the shape of our days. You will hear how a simple sentence can open a door and close another. But before all of that, there was the night in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of rain tapping the window, the dish towel in my hands, damp and warm. A word, spoken softly in another room, meant to be private but carried to me anyway. Burden. Such a small word for such a heavy thing. I stood very still and tried to breathe, so my sadness would not spill out and drown the people I love. If you stay with me, I promise you this is not only a sad story. It is a story about home and what home really is. It is not just walls and a roof. It is hands passing bowls. It is voices calling from the hallway. It is light that finds your face through a window, even on a hard day. I will tell you how I kept the memories safe, even when the house was no longer mine. And maybe, by the end, you will find a gentle lesson you can carry into your own rooms. I am me. I have lived in our small yellow house for 41 years. When I open the front door, I always smell cinnamon and clean laundry. It is a gentle smell, like a hand on your back saying, "You can rest here." The floors know my footsteps now. In the morning, light falls across the kitchen table like warm butter. The window over the sink looks out on the street, where the mail truck comes at the same time each day. There is a little oak tree that Samuel planted when Daniel was 10. Its leaves tap the glass on windy afternoons. I like to stand there with my blue cup and watch. There is a squeaky stair in our house, near the top, just before the bedrooms. It used to cry out every time someone walked up at night. Samuel did not like to wake me, so one Saturday he took a pencil from his shirt pocket and bent down. He rubbed the pencil along the seam and gave the stair a gentle tap, and then another, and he smiled like he was telling the house a secret. He always kept that same pencil behind his ear. The wood was worn soft, and the point was never too sharp. "Graphite is like a whisper," he said once, gently pressing it into the edge where the boards met. "It helps things slide without yelling." I stood on the landing and watched him, and I thought, he fixes things with patience. My son is Daniel. He has kind eyes, the kind that look at you and listen all the way. His words are careful. He thinks before he speaks. When Lily tugs on his sleeve, he bends down to her height, so she feels the world is steady. Nora is my daughter-in-law. She is neat and organized. She keeps a little notebook in her bag, and her lists are written in clean, straight lines. She watches expenses and checks the time often, not because she is hard, but because she is careful. When she smiles fully, her face softens, and you can see how much she tries. Lily is 6. Her hair is soft and often in 2 braids that fall down her back. She whispers to the cat as if the cat holds great secrets. She draws houses with wide windows and little smiling suns above them. Sometimes she presses a crayon so hard that the paper wrinkles. I have simple routines. I water the pots on the porch each morning, even when the air is cool. The basil plant leans toward the sun, and I pinch leaves and rub them between my fingers just to smell the green. I fold the laundry by the window, carefully matching socks like pairs of hands. I watch the street and remember the years I taught Sunday school. Those Sunday school days were gentle chaos. Small faces looking up at me. Little hands that wanted to hold mine. We sang, "This Little Light of Mine," with claps off beat and loud joy. Sometimes I think I can hear those claps in the hallway when the house is quiet. Our dinners are simple. Chicken soup with a carrot sweetness. White rice that rests easy on the plate. I chop parsley and sprinkle it on top, and the green looks bright and fresh. We sit, we eat, we talk about the day. At the table, we keep the talk small. "How was your day?" I ask Lily. "I painted a whale," she says. "He had a hat." Daniel tells me the printer at work made a strange clacking sound and then decided to behave. Nora checks her list and smiles. For a moment, everything feels safe. After dinner, I stand at the sink and wash the bowls with warm water and lemon soap. Nora dries with a white towel and stacks plates in neat towers. Daniel puts away pots and rinses the cutting board. Lily lines up her carrots and takes small bites, one by one, pleased with her row. Sometimes I pause and let my hands rest on the cool edge of the sink. I look out at the porch light. It has a little tilt that Samuel always meant to fix, and I told him not to because I liked the way it leaned. The light makes a soft circle on the steps. It has welcomed so many feet. Samuel used to sit on those back steps after mowing. He would rub his knees and look at the yard, a square of green that was never perfect and always ours. "Me, this is the good part," he would say. "Right here." He would pat the step beside him, and I would sit, and we would share a glass of iced tea. He had a way of saying things like that, small, simple lines that settled in me and lasted. When he said, "We are fine," it felt like a blanket. When he said, "Rest," I learned to put down the dish towel. Even when the days got harder, his voice made a soft place in the room. Toward the end, when the room was white and quiet, I sat by his bed and held his hand. He looked at me with clear eyes, the way he always did when he wanted me to know he meant every word. "The house is theirs," he said. His hand was warm in mine, and I did not ask a question then. Sometimes you just hold a hand and breathe. I carried those words home with me, folded small, like a note you keep in your pocket. I did not know all they would mean. I only knew he wanted Daniel to stand on strong ground. I only knew he trusted me to hold the rest. It was not a plan I understood, but it was a love I recognized. Life with the younger family moves with a different rhythm. Nora's phone pings with reminders. Little blocks of time fill and refill, like a puzzle that has to be solved again each week. "Dentist on Wednesday," she says, touching her notebook. "Parent meeting on Friday." She checks the same page twice, not because she doubts herself, but because she wants to be ready for everything. Daniel works late some nights. His shoulders tell me before he does. He comes home and sets his keys down quietly, like he does not want to disturb the air. "Long day?" I ask. He nods and smiles, so I will not worry. In the mornings, there is a small rush. Lily's shoes are always hiding. "Left shoe, right shoe," I sing, and she laughs and checks under the chair. Daniel packs a little container of grapes. Nora ties a ribbon in Lily's braid and smooths the flyaways. The door opens and closes, and then the house holds its breath for a moment. When they leave, I walk through each room slowly. I touch the back of a chair and the side of the bookshelf. I straighten a picture frame and pick up a zebra toy from the rug. I like to make small order, like setting the corners of a blanket straight. I try to help without being in the way. I cook simple meals and label leftover containers in big letters. I pick up Lily from school on days when the schedule is tight. We walk home, counting mailboxes and pretending they are little people in bright hats. I tell stories at night when asked. If I wonder whether my story is too long, I stop and ask, "Do you want more?" Lily always says, "Yes." My body is not quick like it used to be. I am learning to move more slowly. The stairs ask for care. The floor asks for steady feet. Sometimes I reach for a word and find it a moment later, standing just around the corner in my mind. There's a place on the hallway wall where Daniel's height is penciled in. Small lines at 7, 8, 9. Little notes beside them. Basketball year. Lost front tooth. I stand there sometimes and remember him barefoot in pajamas, back straight against the wall, eyes bright with hope that he had grown. We made a shelf for Lily's seashells by the window. There are smooth white shells and spiral ones with tiny doors. She lines them up and gives them names. This one is Princess Moon, she tells me. This one is the Grandpa shell. I nod and listen as if I am learning a new language. The wooden banister warms under my hand. It has a soft shine from years of palms sliding up and down. On quiet afternoons, I dust it with a cloth and think about all the parties and quiet dinners and rainy days it has seen. The house is a keeper of hours. The house has its own sounds. The refrigerator hums at night, steady as a lullaby. The heater ticks when the heat starts like a friendly tap. The clock in the hallway is slow, and we do not fix it. We like how it lags a little, like it is letting us breathe. In the kitchen, I keep Samuel's pencil tin on the windowsill. It holds a few yellow pencils worn low, a stub of an eraser, and a paper clip that looks like a heart if you tilt your head. Lily likes to line them up and says, "Grandpa had tiny tools." I tell her, "Yes, and careful hands." Our porch is small, but it is a stage where many little plays happen. The cat slides between the railings when the sun is warm. The neighbor, Mr. Garcia, walks by with 2 oranges and waves. He always says, "Smells good, me," when the soup is simmering. I tell him I will bring him a bowl later, and I do. On Sundays, I sometimes go to the church where I used to teach. The children have grown, and new ones have come. When they sing, I feel the old rhythm in my hands. I do not lead anymore, but I sit and smile at the sound of small voices lifting the same words I love. I like the market on Thursdays. The woman who sells tomatoes sets the soft ones aside and saves them for sauce. We talk about the weather and whether the rain will help the herbs. I buy carrots with their green tops and bring them home like a bouquet. It feels good to choose simple things. Nora is good with numbers. She pays bills on the 1st of the month. She keeps track of the little leaks in the budget that can sink a boat. "It is not the big things," she says. "It is the small drips." She looks at her notebook, and I see her want to make the world steady for her family. When she has time, she bakes. Her banana bread is careful and even, and the house smells like comfort when it is in the oven. "It's your recipe," she tells me. I smile because she has made it her own. She slices it in straight pieces and wraps leftovers like little gifts. Sometimes, Daniel and I stand by the porch light during a summer rain. He holds the umbrella above us and half the drops find us anyway. "Remember the time the power went out?" he asks. I laugh. We shared peanut butter sandwiches by candlelight and told stories until the candle made a soft lake of wax on the table. At night, Lily brushes her teeth and comes to the living room to say goodnight. "Can you tell me one line from a story?" she asks. I give her one line. "Once there was a girl who kept a seashell in her pocket." She nods and says, "Good, I will dream the rest." My place is to make the house gentle. I fluff the pillows, not too much, just enough to show I see the little tired places. I wipe the crumbs and leave a cookie in a bag with Lily's name on it. I put a sprig of basil in a jar by the sink so the kitchen looks like it has a little green smile. I try not to fuss. When I want to say, "Take a sweater," I check the weather first. I touch the sweater, then let it hang. When I want to fix a little mess, I wait to see if someone else is about to fix it. If I pour tea and see Nora watching the time, I pour her a cup to go and say, "You are doing a good job." She looks surprised, then grateful, then soft. The cat belongs to all of us and to no one at once. She sleeps in the laundry basket and wakes when the washing machine beeps. Lily whispers to her, "You are queen of the quiet." The cat blinks as if to say, "I know." There is a comfort in a creature that asks only for warmth and a dish. In the spare room, I keep a box with photographs. Some are loose, some are in albums. I do not go through them too often, only on days when the light is kind. There is Samuel in a sweater, looking at the camera like he is looking at me again. There is Daniel in a Halloween cape, grinning as if the world is his. On the living room wall, there is a picture of a lighthouse. Samuel picked it at a yard sale when we were young. "It looks like it knows its job," he said. I laughed and said, "Like you." He pretended to be offended and then laughed too. The lighthouse has watched over our evenings for years. Some days I sit on the back steps with a small piece of bread and a jar of jam. I spread the jam in a thin, careful layer and watch a single line of ants explore the edge of the step. The sun slides slowly across the yard. I think about nothing at all, and it feels like a prayer. Lily's drawings cover the refrigerator. There are houses with big windows, always with light shining out. There are stick people holding hands in rows and stars that hang low like friendly lanterns. She tapes her art up herself, and the tape goes crooked. I leave it crooked on purpose. It looks happy that way. Sometimes late, I hear Daniel and Nora talking in their room. Their voices are soft, like they do not want to wake anyone or anything. I only catch a word here and there, like tomorrow, or check, or maybe. I turn over and let their words be theirs. It is important to give people room. I am learning new ways to be useful. I put reminders on the wall calendar for trash day and return library books. I sew a loose button on a shirt without being asked. I keep a small drawer with extra batteries and small tools, so no one has to hunt in a hurry. It is my way of smoothing the edges of the day. Sometimes my knee aches, and the ache makes me quiet. I move slower and I sit more. I look out the window and count the cars. I set a timer so the soup does not forget me. I remind myself that slowness can be a kind teacher if I let it be. The porch light glows each evening. It is like a promise we keep, even when the day has been messy. It says, "People live here." It says, "Come back safe." When I lock the door at night, I touch the warm metal with my fingertips and whisper, "Thank you." The house keeps every whisper. It keeps lullabies. It keeps the scratch of fork on plate, the hush of breath when someone falls asleep on the couch, the tiny gasp when Lily sees the first snow. If you listen, you can hear it holding everything, like a friend with wide arms. Inside this house, I am both the keeper of old stories and the maker of small new ones. I do not need a loud part. I do not need a stage. I need a chair by the window, a soft dish towel in my hands, and the rhythm of a family moving around me. This is the life I love, and this is where my story begins. Small tensions began in little places, like a drawer. One afternoon, I reached for the little whisk in the second drawer by the stove. My fingers touched the wooden spoons, then the spatulas, then a neat row of measuring cups. The whisk was not there. I paused and looked around the kitchen. Nora had wiped the counters and lined up the jars of flour and sugar like soldiers. The room smelled like lemon and warm bread. "I moved the whisk to the first drawer," she said, cheerful but careful. "Thank you for tidying," I said, and I meant it. The drawer looked cleaner than it had in years. I felt a small worry flutter through me, the kind that asks, "Will I remember?" I took a sticky note from the little pad near the phone and wrote, "Whisk, first drawer," and pressed it to the edge of the counter. Nora nodded, noticing my note but not saying anything about it. She stacked 2 clean plates on the open shelf, one exactly on top of the other. "It makes more sense near the stove," she added softly. I smiled and said, "It does." Later, I reached for my knitting basket in the living room. I kept it near the armchair where the light fell just right in the afternoon. The basket was not there. My eyes found it in the hallway, tucked beside the coat rack. I picked it up and carried it back to the chair. My hands were gentle, like I was moving a sleeping cat. Nora walked by and touched the edge of the basket with her toe. "So Lily won't trip," she said gently, and then she squeezed my arm to show kindness. I nodded and looked down at the yarn. "Of course," I said. I set the basket on the floor beside the chair, a little further in, so it was less in the way. The chair looked a bit lonely without it close by. Small things shifted in the house, the way furniture slides on soft rugs when people pass. My teacups moved to a higher shelf to make room for Lily's new plastic cups with star shapes on them. The basket of mail slid from the entry table into the small drawer. The slippers I kept near the back door found a new home by the mat. I told myself the house was learning a new rhythm, like when you hum and someone else adds a harmony. It was not wrong, just different. I tried to hum along. I wrote small notes for myself, little maps for my hands. One afternoon, a white envelope arrived with the property tax notice. It was thick and official and made of paper that does not bend easy. I set it on the table and waited for Nora and Daniel to come home. The porch light clicked on as the sun dropped. Daniel opened the letter after dinner. His face stayed calm, but a line appeared between his eyebrows. He placed the paper on the table and smoothed it with his palm. Nora leaned in, her lips pressed together. "Property taxes went up," Daniel said quietly. We looked at the numbers together, though numbers have never been my language. They told me only that things had changed. Nora pulled her notebook close and made a quick list in small, neat letters. "We can adjust," Nora said. She spoke it like a plan, which I respected. "Maybe we think about options down the line. Maybe we could sell one day or rent out the downstairs to make it easier." Her voice stayed even, but I saw the worry in her eyes. I felt my mouth open before my mind had fully caught up. "I can contribute from savings," I said, "just until we get the rhythm right." I wanted to hold the worry in my hands and make it smaller. Daniel shook his head gently. "Mom, keep your money, we will figure it out." He reached across the table and touched my wrist like he was smoothing a wrinkle. Nora nodded, and her eyes flicked to me and then to her notebook again. I let my hand rest on the table and breathed in. The table had a scratch across it from the year Daniel did a puzzle with a heavy hand. I watched my reflection tremble slightly in the varnish. I said, "All right," and I meant that too. But worry is like steam. It rises even when you put the lid on. The next morning, as we got ready for school, I reached for Lily's sweater. The air was cool and the sky had a gray edge, the kind that says it will not warm up quickly. I held out the sweater the way you offer kindness. "Put this on, sweetheart," I said. Nora looked up from tying a bow in Lily's braid. "She'll be fine," she said, her voice light, her hands sure. Lily stood between us with her small backpack, eyes moving from my face to hers. I felt a blush touch my cheeks, though no one had done anything wrong. I folded the sweater and set it on the chair by the door. "It will be here if you want it," I said. I smoothed my hand over the soft knit. I do not want to be a shadow parent, I told myself. I want to be a warm floor beneath their feet. That afternoon, I made tea and tried to let go of the sweater. The cat jumped into the window seat and closed her eyes, as if to show me how to rest. I touched Samuel's pencil tin on the windowsill and told myself to take my own advice. Sometimes the hardest thing is to be useful in a quiet way. The days kept their shape, but they leaned slightly. Once, I found the extra blankets folded in a different place. Once, a small bowl I used for garlic was suddenly filled with rubber bands. I moved with these changes like stepping stones across a slow river. I watched my feet, not the water. One night, I went to the kitchen for water and stopped when I heard voices. They were close, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. I stood behind the half-closed door, not meaning to hide, just unsure how to enter. Nora's voice was low and tired. "I feel like we're always adjusting to her," she said. "Our rhythm is off." Her words were soft, but they found me anyway. Daniel answered with the quiet that is his kindness. "She's trying." He said it like someone holding a candle in a dim room. I pictured his face, the small crease that shows up when he is asking for patience. I did not move for a moment. The air felt thick, like soup. I pressed my palm to my chest, feeling the slow drum of my heart. I turned and walked back down the hall as quietly as I could. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the slippers on the rug. There was no anger in me, only a tired kind of sadness. I understood that houses have rhythms and people do, too. It is hard when they do not match. The next morning, I made oatmeal the way Daniel likes it, with a little cinnamon and a drop of honey. I set the bowls down as if I could smooth the night with warm food. Nora smiled at me and thanked me. Her eyes looked rested, or maybe she only wanted to look that way for my sake. Later that week, I went into the spare room with a stack of old letters. The spare room gets a square of sunlight in the late morning. The dust shows itself there, dancing kindly, not ashamed to be seen. I spread the letters on the bed and began to sort. Some envelopes were thin and brittle with time. Some held little notes from a younger me to a younger Samuel. "Bread in the oven at 6, one said. "Don't forget the drop cloth," another said in his big, square writing from the year we painted the house white and laughed when we stepped in the paint tray. I smiled at his lists. He always wrote me, "Don't forget the drop cloth," as if I was the forgetful one. He would then be the one to leave the brush on the porch rail, so we found a stripe of paint there later. We would call it our mark, because every mistake made together can become a joke if you laugh at it enough. I labeled boxes with a thick marker. Summer, Christmas, Samuel's tools, Daniel's little league. I pressed the caps on tight and lined the boxes by the wall, neat and sure. It felt good to put memories in soft places where they would not be hurt. The smell of paper and dust made me calm. I ran my fingers over a picture of Daniel in a green uniform, missing his front tooth, his eyes shining with pride and grass stains. I tucked it into the Daniel's little league box and patted the top. It felt like tucking a child into bed. On an ordinary afternoon, the phone rang while the soup simmered. Daniel answered. His voice changed into the careful tone people use with official things. "Yes, this is Daniel," he said. "Yes, this is he." I heard the name Mr. Patel and stopped my hand with the spoon in the air. The soup waited. The clock ticked. Daniel said yes a few times, then I understand, and we will come in. He hung up and stood very still for a second, like his body had not gotten the message to move yet. I wiped my hands and turned to him. "Everything all right?" I asked, keeping my voice light. He looked at me and then past me, toward the window, as if there was something he wanted to read in the sky. "Yes," he said, "just some paperwork with Mr. Patel, about the property." He smiled, and it reached his mouth, not his eyes. "All right," I said. I picked up the spoon and stirred the soup again. The carrots circled in the pot like small boats. I did not ask another question. Sometimes the best help is to let someone bring a worry to you when they are ready. A few days later, when the house was quiet, Nora sat with me at the kitchen table. The sunlight made a small square on the wood, and our cups left little wet rings. She folded and unfolded the edge of a napkin, her fingers moving like leaves in wind. "Me," she said softly, "I was thinking." I put my cup down and looked at her face, not wanting to rush her words. "Maybe you would be happy staying with Joy for a while. It could be a nice change. Fresh air, fewer stairs." Joy is my sister. She lives across town in a small apartment with plants that lean toward the sun. The idea of her warm laugh made a little light in me. At the same time, I heard something underneath Nora's words. I heard space opening that did not include me. "That is kind of you to think about," I said. I kept my hands on the cup. They were warm, and that steadied me. "Maybe I could visit for a week. She always says the plants need more stories." Nora smiled and touched my wrist. "She would love that," she said. She looked relieved and then guilty for looking relieved. I did not name any of it. Nomming is not always a kindness. Later that day, I placed a new photo on the mantel. It was a picture of Samuel and me at the beach when we were young. His hair was thick and going every direction because the wind liked him. My dress was simple, and I looked like I believed in sunny days. I stood back to see how the photo fitted with the others. It did not crowd them. It stood there gently, like a person who does not take up more space than they need. I smiled at it and felt Samuel close, like a memory with warm hands. Nora came in with a cloth and a small spray bottle. "I will just dust in here," she said. She lifted each frame and wiped the mantel. When she put the frames back, she placed the beach photo 2 inches to the right. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. We stood there with the space between the photo and the edge of the mantel looking a little different than before. The silence was loud, like the pause between a question and an answer. "Tea?" I asked, my voice soft but steady. I stepped toward the kitchen, letting the moment be just a moment and not a storm. "Yes, please," she said after a small breath. "Thank you." We poured the tea and did not talk about the photo. We talked about the weather and whether the basil would survive the next cool night. She said she had read that plants are stronger than we think. I said, "People are too," and we both smiled without pushing the thought further. At bedtime, after the lights were low, I heard voices again. Words can travel easily when the house is quiet. I did not go looking for them. They found me. Nora's voice was more tired this time. It held a thin sadness that made me want to hold out my hands. "We can't keep living like this," she said. "I need our home to be ours." The word ours is a small word, but it has a lot inside it. It holds doors and chairs and closets, but it also holds breath and love and rest. It is not the kind of word you should tug over a fence. It can break if you do. I stood in the hallway for a second and then turned back to my room. My steps were slow. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the picture on my nightstand of Daniel at 3 years old with jam on his face. I felt the small breaking inside me and did not chase it away. In the morning, I moved around the kitchen like nothing had changed, because it had and it had not. I made toast. I cut an apple and put it in a small bowl for Lily. The sun came up and made patterns on the counter through the leaves outside, the way it always does. I told myself to be patient, to be soft, to be water and not stone. Stones do not move. Water finds a way around and keeps everything green where it goes. I looked for quiet places to be helpful. I folded towels and laid them in the cupboard so they lined up like friendly books. I washed the little rug by the sink and hung it on the porch railing to dry in the sun. I put a small vase with 2 basil sprigs on the bathroom shelf so the room would smell kind. When Lily came home from school, she showed me a drawing. "This is our house," she said, pointing at the square with a yellow top. "The windows are big so the light can come in." She had drawn 3 stick figures inside, holding hands. "Beautiful," I said. I did not say that the yellow looked brighter than our house has ever been. I did not say that she had drawn 3 people, not 4. Children draw what they feel and what they see. I kissed the top of her head and said, "Let's put it on the fridge." I made potatoes and green beans for dinner that night. The potatoes were soft but not mushy. The green beans had a snap. Daniel thanked me. Nora smiled, tired. We sat together and ate and talked about nothing heavy. After dinner, I washed the dishes and left them to dry on the rack because I have always liked the look of a clean line of plates. The dish towel was damp in my hands. I folded it and unfolded it without thinking. My hands have always talked to me before my mouth does. That night, when the house was sleeping, I went to the kitchen again. The porch light was on, making its soft circle on the steps. I folded the dish towel again and again. The cotton smoothed beneath my hands until I could feel nothing but the weave and the warmth. The next day, Daniel found me in the spare room with the memory boxes. He looked at the labels and nodded. "You are organizing," he said, as if I had surprised him with how far I had gotten. He picked up the summer box and peered inside. "I thought it would be good to know where things are," I said. I held a postcard from a trip we had taken to the lake. It showed a small boat and a big sky. "Sometimes it is easier to move forward if you know what you have behind you." He sat on the edge of the bed and sighed, the way people do when a weight is not heavy but is constant. "Mr. Patel wants us to come in next week," he said. "There are some papers that need signatures about the house." He said it calmly, but the words tasted like metal in the room. "All right," I said. I put the postcard into the summer box and closed the lid. "Do you want me to come?" I asked. I did not know if my presence would help or make the room tighter. He shook his head and then smiled gently. "No, it is fine," he said. "I will go with Nora." He looked down at his hands like they were trying to say something to him. I touched his shoulder and let my hand rest there for a second. "You are doing a good job," I said. He looked up and nodded. Sometimes grown children need to hear the simple sentences they heard when they were small. As the week went on, the small shifts continued. Nora suggested a new place for the shoes by the door. She put a tray under the plant so it would not make a water ring on the table. She changed the place where we kept the extra napkins. These were all sensible things, and still, each one made a little echo in me. I tried to echo back with kindness. I wrote "napkins now in drawer" on a small note and stuck it inside the cabinet door. I took my slippers to my room so the hallway looked clear. I moved my blue cup to a lower shelf so I would not have to reach high when no one was home. The cat, not concerned with any of these human arrangements, stretched in the sun and rolled onto her back. She let the light cover her belly and blinked at me as if to say, "This is what matters." I laughed softly and scratched behind her ear. She purred, a sound like small bees. On Friday, Nora and Daniel went to Mr. Patel's office. I watched Lily, and we made a paper chain for no reason except that it is soothing to make something long out of small pieces. We looped red to blue to yellow. We hung it on the bedroom wall and stood back to admire it. "Do you think Mama will like it?" Lily asked. "I think she will," I said. We took a picture and sent it to Nora. A little heart came back on my phone screen. That small heart felt like a warm stone in my pocket. When they came home, they were quiet. They took off their shoes and put their bags down. They moved a little slower than usual, as if the air were thicker. I opened my mouth and then closed it. Questions are heavy when people are tired. We ate leftovers and watched a show about houses being fixed up in 30 minutes, which is not how houses get fixed in real life. Nora leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. Lily crawled into her lap with a blanket. I sat in my chair and knitted a few rows and then took them out because they were too tight. After Lily went to bed, Nora stood at the window and looked out. The street was quiet. The porch light made its circle on the steps. She put her hand on the glass like she was checking for weather. "We will be okay," Daniel said softly from the couch. "I know," she said. She kept her hand there as if the glass had answers. "I just want a home that feels like ours." She whispered the word ours, and I felt it again, that small break inside, like a thin twig under a careful step. In the days after, I moved more softly through the house. I tried to take up less space, though I know my presence is not a chair you can push in. I kept my voice low and my footsteps light. I wanted to be water, not stone. I took a little walk every afternoon to give the house time to breathe. The path around the block is friendly, with cracked sidewalks and a neighbor who always waves. I counted 4 blue doors, 3 small dogs, and 1 child with a bubble wand. The bubbles floated and popped, ready to be gone and not sad about it. When I came back, I would open the door and say, "Hello, house," the way I used to say, "Hello, classroom," when I taught on Sundays. The house never answered, but it held a steady air that comforted me. I think of houses as good listeners. One evening, I set 2 bowls on the counter for soup and realized I had set them where the fruit bowl now lives. I moved them and then forgot for a moment where I had moved them from. I laughed at myself and then felt the laugh thin out. It is a strange thing to be old in a place you know and not know. I wrote a small sign for myself and stuck it inside the cupboard door where I would see it. "Bowls above sink now," it said. The note looked a little like a child wrote it. That did not bother me. We all need soft direction sometimes. Nora found the note later and smiled at me. "You are very good at adjusting," she said. Her voice was kind. I felt that bit of warmth spread across my chest like sunlight. "I am trying," I said. "I know," she replied. But the small shifts did not stop. The laundry basket I liked to carry to the porch moved into the bathroom. The stack of magazines found their way to a bin behind the couch. The photo of the beach moved again to sit beside another frame, as if it needed company. Each day, I let my hands feel for new places. On a quiet afternoon, I sat with the Christmas box and unwrapped a small ornament with a dent in its side. It was shaped like a bell and had lost its ring years ago. I held it and thought of the year Daniel was 4 and hid all the bells under his bed. He called it his Bell Hotel. I laughed and then let the laugh turn into a small ache because that is what memories do. I wrapped the bell again and put it with the others. I taped the box closed and wrote Christmas in darker letters, as if the word could hold better if it looked strong. That evening, after the dishes were done, I dried the sink, the way Samuel taught me, to keep it shining. I folded the dish towel and placed it over the oven handle. My fingers smoothed the edges. The cotton felt like a hand that never gets tired of being held. I told myself again, be patient, be soft. I told myself, do not make echoes louder. I told myself, you are water, find the places to flow. These sentences were like small stones I kept in my pocket, smooth from being touched. Another day, I picked Lily up from school and we stopped at the park on the way home. She climbed the low ladder and shouted, "Watch me," as if she could climb to the moon. We counted the swings that were empty and the ones that were not. We shared a granola bar and let the crumbs fall. When we got home, Nora was at the table with her notebook and a calculator. She had a pencil behind her ear like Samuel used to. "We are all set for next month," she said, half to herself. "I will call the insurance again tomorrow." Her lists had grown, so had her sighs. I made tea and placed a cup by her hand. "Thank you," she said without looking up, the way tired people say thanks. I stood there for a moment and then touched her shoulder. "You are doing a good job," I said. Her eyes met mine and softened. Small kindnesses moved between us like the passing of dishes at dinner. But underneath, there was still a movement I could not quiet on my own. I could feel the house wanting to settle into a shape that did not include me in the center. I could feel myself trying to become the edges. One evening, Daniel asked, "Do you want to watch that show about the lighthouse keepers?" I nodded, happy to sit side by side. The show was slow and careful. It showed people tending light, washing windows, turning the lens, keeping ships from rocks. We sat quietly for an hour. When it ended, Daniel said, "You always liked lighthouses." I smiled and said, "They know their job." He laughed, and for a moment, we were back at that yard sale with Samuel, and the world did not feel so complicated. Later that night, when I turned out the last light and the house sighed into sleep, I stood in the kitchen and folded the dish towel. I felt the weave under my fingers. I thought of the whisk in its new drawer, the knitting basket in the hallway, the photo 2 inches to the right. I thought of hours and home and burden, and I let the thoughts pass without grabbing them. The cotton smoothed beneath my hands, over and over, until I could hear my heart slow. I laid the towel down and whispered, "Tomorrow be water." The porch light made its circle outside, faithful as ever. Inside, I stood for a moment longer and then went to bed. Soft steps on an old floor that holds more than one story at a time. It rained the way it does when the sky wants us to stay small. The drops were steady and close together, like a curtain you could not see through. The street was shiny and dark. The sound on the porch roof was a soft, quick drum that did not stop. We stood in the entry, holding our umbrellas like wet wings. Daniel shook his and leaned it against the wall. Nora folded hers twice and slipped the loop over the hook. I touched my coat near the buttons and felt the damp there. "Ready?" Daniel asked. His voice was gentle. He looked at me, not past me, which I appreciated. "Yes," I said. I took a breath and nodded. "Let's go." Mr. Patel's office was on the second floor of a small building near the old bakery. The stairs were clean and simple, with a rail that did not wobble. Inside, the air smelled like lemon polish and paper. The receptionist had a soft scarf and a quiet smile. A clock on the wall ticked in a patient, steady way, not hurrying anyone. We sat in chairs that did not squeak. The cushions were firm, the way they are when many people have sat and waited with many kinds of thoughts. A plant by the window stood up tall, touched by a light that did not know about the rain. Mr. Patel came out to greet us. He always wore a tie with a small pattern, and he always took off his glasses when he spoke for more than a minute. "Me," he said, with respect in his voice. "Thank you for coming." He nodded to Daniel and Nora. "Please come in." His office had a wooden desk with a smooth edge. There were 2 chairs across from it and one beside the bookshelf. He offered us water, and we each took a cup, even though none of us were thirsty. It is something to do with your hands when your heart is busy. The clock on the shelf kept its slow tick. Mr. Patel looked at a folder with our name on it. He opened it with care, as if paper could feel. "We are here to complete the reading and to answer any questions," he said, calm and clear. Samuel took care to make everything as simple as possible. My hands rested on my knees. I felt the weave of my skirt under my fingers. I looked at the window and watched a small river of rain. Mr. Patel read the words with respect. He did not hurry. "In the matter of the home on Willow Street," he said, "Samuel directed that the property be transferred to Daniel and Nora." He paused and looked up to make sure we heard. "There is a condition attached. They are to ensure monthly support for me from a small annuity Samuel set aside. If needed, they may sell or refinance the home." The words were calm. They were like stones placed in a careful line. They did not shout. They did not sting. But they did change the shape of the path. Mr. Patel's voice stayed gentle. "He also noted," he said, and here he slid a piece of paper closer to himself, that he believed the house would be best secured for the young family, and he trusted his wife's strength to hold what could not be measured in deeds. I swallowed. The room felt both close and far. I heard the rain steady. I heard the clock steady. In my mind, I heard Samuel's voice in the hospital. It was clear and soft. "The house is theirs," he said. I had held those words folded small for months. Here they were, unfolded on a desk with lemon polish. Mr. Patel lifted another paper. "There is a letter for me," he said. He slid an envelope toward me. My name was on it in Samuel's hand, steady and simple. The envelope looked like any envelope, and still, my heart lifted and sank at once. I did not open it then. I placed my hand on it, palm down, like I was keeping a small bird still. "Thank you," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to me, which I took as a good sign. He went over a few more points. He said simple words on purpose. He explained the annuity. "It will provide a monthly amount for you, me," he said. "It is not large, but it is steady. It was important to Samuel that you not feel unsecured." "That sounds like him," I said, and I smiled, then felt the smile fade into the rest of my face. I did not want to cry, not here, not with lemon polish and paper watching. Mr. Patel asked if we had questions. Daniel took a breath and asked about timing. Nora asked about a paper we would need to sign at the bank. I sat with my hands on my lap and looked at the window again. The rain did not show signs of stopping, but rain always stops eventually. It is the patient thing in life. We signed where he pointed. We took copies. He folded the papers into a neat stack and put a clip on them. He told us again that Samuel had thought hard about what to do. "He loved you very much," he said. "All of you." I nodded. I pressed my lips together and looked down at the envelope. I felt a kind of quiet pride that Samuel believed I was strong. I felt also the thin ache of being asked to be strong again. Love and pain often sit side by side like two friends who do not always agree. In the hallway after the meeting, we stood close because the space was small. The carpet was soft. The air smelled like rain that had come inside and did not know where to go. Nora's face was calm, but her hands held the strap of her bag like a lifeline. Her fingers were white around it, then pink again, then white. Daniel rubbed his brow. He looked like a man who wanted to fix a thing that is not a thing you can fix with tools. He looked at me and said, "Mom, we'll make sure you're comfortable." His voice had a promise in it. He meant it. "I'm all right," I said. It came out without me planning it. It is the road I know well. I leaned into those words because they have carried me before. It does not mean I do not need help. It means I know how to stand while I wait for it. We walked out into the rain. The umbrellas opened with small pops, like soft fireworks. The world outside was a blur of gray and wet light. The car door made a hollow sound when Daniel opened it. We climbed in and sat with the rain drumming just above our heads. No one talked much on the way home. The windshield wipers moved back and forth, doing their slow job over and over. A bus passed us, carrying people who also had their own papers to sign and their own small envelopes to open. At home, the house smelled like the soup I had left on low. It was good to be greeted by something warm. We took off our coats. We placed the papers on the table, just for a moment, and then tucked them into the drawer by the phone. The envelope stayed in my hand a little longer. I put it in my room on the small table by the window, like a candle I was not ready to light. Lily came home with her cheeks pink from the damp. She shook her braids like little bells and asked for cocoa. I made it and watched the steam curl up. Cocoa kept the rain on the other side of the glass. The rest of the day moved in its slow way. Daniel answered emails with careful fingers. Nora cooked a pot of rice and looked out the kitchen window at the wet porch. Lily built a house with blocks and put the cat inside, which the cat allowed for 2 minutes, and then stepped out with dignity. At bedtime, we tucked Lily in and read a short book about a frog and a pond and a blue stick. She laughed at the word stick, like it was funnier than it is. Children can pull joy out of small words. We turned off the light and left the door open a little, because the hallway light has its own kind of kindness. After Lily slept, I came to the kitchen for water. The house was quiet in the rain. The sound of it had softened, like it was apologizing for being loud before. I held a glass under the tap and filled it halfway. The water made a round song in the glass. I walked toward the hallway and paused when I heard my name. It was not my name said out loud. It was the sound before a name, the breath people take when they are about to use it. I stood very still. Nora's voice came from the living room, soft and tired. "I feel like I'm failing if I say this out loud," she said. "But I am overwhelmed. I feel like she's become a burden." The last word was quiet. It was barely more than a breath, but I heard it. The refrigerator hummed. It was a faithful sound, the same as always. I looked down at my glass. A drop of water slid down the outside, slow, and rested at the tip of my thumb. I did not wipe it away. My body wanted to move into the room and say, "Let's talk." My mouth wanted to say, "I am sorry you feel that way." My heart wanted to curl in on itself like a leaf in heat. I stood still and breathed. In, out, in, out. I put my hand on the counter. The cool edge brought me back to my body. The world can get very small in a moment, like a room with all the doors closed. The cool brought air back into that room. I turned and walked back to my room. My steps were slow. I did not want the floorboards to tell anyone I was there. I sat on the bed and looked at my slippers. They were side by side, toes pointing forward, waiting for next morning. The envelope was on the small table by the window. The rain tapped the glass. I picked up the envelope and touched the place where my name was written. I slipped my finger under the flap and opened it in one careful motion so the paper would not tear. Inside was a single sheet of white paper. It had 3 small paragraphs. Samuel's hand was simple and quiet on the page. I breathed and read. "I am not leaving you, me. I am giving them a chance to stand." I read that line twice. I put my hand on my chest and felt that I was still here. I read the next part. He explained the mortgage in plain words. He wrote about a second loan we had taken when the roof needed replacing and when times had been tight. He wrote that Daniel had taken on some debts he did not want to tell me about. He said he did not want Daniel to drown quietly trying to hold everything at once. He wrote, "Giving the house to the young family will protect all of us in the long run. The annuity will help you each month. It is not grand. It is steady. I wish it were more. I wish I had more time to make it more." I smiled through tears at that sentence. It sounded like him, always wanting to fix even what he could not. The last paragraph was simple. "What we built is not lost. What we are is not the roof. Keep the memories safe." I put my hand over those words. I could almost feel the warmth of his hand beneath mine, through the paper, across the months. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time with the letter in my lap. The rain slowed. It became a soft discussion with the leaves. Somewhere a car passed and sounded like a boat. I let the word burden sit next to the words, "I am giving them a chance to stand." I did not push either away. I looked at them both. They did not like each other, but they could sit near each other without fighting if I let them. I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. I put the envelope under the small dish with my ring in it to keep it from drifting. I turned off the lamp and lay down. The room felt new and old at the same time. My eyes found the faint square of the window in the dark. I breathed and let sleep come in fits and starts, the way it does when your thoughts still walk the halls. In the morning, the sky looked washed. The street was clean and shiny, the way it always is after a hard rain. The porch steps had small puddles that would evaporate by noon. The air smelled like the first page of a book. I got up and made tea. I chose the blue cup. I warmed the pot and let the tea sit for a minute, not rushing it. I set out 3 cups because I knew this morning needed 3. Daniel came in with his hair still damp from a quick shower. He looked at the cups and then at me. Nora came in a moment later and stopped in the doorway. She saw the cups too. We are a family that understands some things without words. "Tea?" I asked. My voice was soft but did not shake. I poured without waiting for an answer. I pushed the sugar toward the middle. Some conversations are better with something sweet near at hand. We sat at the table. The light through the window was a pale yellow, gentle on the wood. I let the steam leave the cups. I let the silence find a place to sit too. Then I spoke. "I heard something last night," I said. I looked at Nora, not at the floor. "You said I was a burden." There it was. I did not add other words to cushion it. I did not say only once or by accident. I let it be the small, heavy thing that it was. Nora's eyes filled with tears. She did not hide them. She put her hand to her mouth and then to her heart. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "I am drowning in love and work and worry." The words came out plain and tired. She looked so young to me in that moment, young and heavy at the same time. Daniel reached out. He took my hand and hers. He held them on the table. It was clumsy. His hands were not big enough to hold both of us at once, but the gesture was kind. It made a small bridge, at least for a minute. "I am sorry you heard it that way," Nora said. "No, that is not right. I am sorry I said it. I am sorry I feel it sometimes. I am trying so hard to do right by everyone and I do not know how." Her voice cracked. She looked at the napkin like it might tell her what to do. "I know," I said. "I meant it. I know that people can love and hurt at the same time. I know that loving does not make you tireless. I know that all of us are softer than we look." I lifted my cup and took a small sip. The tea was warm. It tasted like something you can build a day on. I put the cup down and set my hands flat on the table. The wood was steady under my palms. "I have been thinking," I said, "about the will, about what Samuel said, about the house, about what you need, and about what I need." They both looked at me like the sun had just moved. I took a breath. I looked at the window. The oak leaves were wet and bright. "I will go to Joy's for a while," I said. "I will give you the house the way the will says, the way Samuel asked me to." I turned my face back to them. "The house is yours," I said, and the words were heavy. They were also light. "I will take what is mine, the stories and the softness." Nora began to cry in the quiet way some people cry, with almost no sound. Daniel held her hand in both of his, then reached for my hand again. He shook his head. "Mom, you do not have to go," he said, his voice so full I wanted to smooth it. "I know," I said. "I do not have to, I am choosing to for a while." I let that part be clear. "This house wants to be yours, I can feel it, and I want you to have the room to make it so. I will not be far, I will still be here in the ways that matter." Nora wiped her face and looked at me through eyes that were red. "Me," she said, "I am so sorry." She reached across the table and touched my forearm. "You are not a burden, I was wrong to say it. I am just tired and worried and sometimes I lose my way." "I know," I said again. It was the only line that felt right. "We all lose our way. We all say things that do not hold all of what we mean, but we can decide what we do next." I laid my palm over her fingers. Her hand was warm and a little shaky. Daniel looked from her to me and back again. "When?" he asked softly. The question felt like rain that could start again or could pass. "Not today," I said. "Soon, I will call Joy. I do not need much time to pack. We can do it over a few days. I do not want this to feel like a rush or a push." I pictured the boxes in the spare room with their soft labels. They were ready in a way I did not plan at the time. "We want to help," Daniel said. "We will carry what you need. We will drive you. We will come visit right away." The promises were important, not because of the exact actions, but because of the love inside them. "I know," I said. "Thank you." I let the gratitude sit in my chest like a warm stone. We sat there a while longer. We drank our tea. The clock in the hallway ticked with its slow tempo. The refrigerator hummed and stopped and hummed again. Lily's art on the fridge door smiled at us with yellow windows and stick people holding hands. We did not slam doors. We did not raise our voices. We did not pick up words like sharp tools. We breathed. We kept the room soft. After a while, Nora stood and washed her cup. She dried it and set it in the cupboard. She turned back and asked, "Can I make you breakfast?" It was a small, ordinary question. It felt like a hand reaching out. I said, "Yes," and we both smiled a little. Daniel went to the entry and picked up the mail from the floor where it had slid. He brought it to the table and sorted it into piles. "Bill, catalog, letter for Lily from school," he said, making small order. It was a comfort. I went to my room and took the envelope with Samuel's letter out from under the little dish. I held it again and read it once more. The words did not change, but they changed me. "What we are is not the roof," he had written. I whispered it out loud this time so the air could hear. "What we are is not the roof." I placed the envelope in my bag. I felt better knowing it was close, the way some people carry a smooth stone or a prayer. I stood by the window and watched a small bird hop along the wet branch. It found something and then flew away, just like that, off into its next thing. In the afternoon, I called Joy. Her voice was bright, the way it always is. "Me," she said. "I was thinking of you just now. Does that mean we are old enough to do that always?" She laughed at herself. "I was hoping I could come stay with you for a little while," I said. "If you have space, if your plants will share their sun." "My plants are generous," she said quickly. "And so am I. Come tomorrow, come today. I will make the bed with the good sheets and the pillow you like. We will drink tea and find the shows where no one yells." I smiled and let some quiet into the line. "Thank you," I said. "It might be later this week. I want to do it gently." I told her a small part of why. I did not say the word that had found me in the kitchen. I did not need to. Sisters hear pages you do not read out loud. "Bring only what you love," Joy said. "The rest will find you later if it is meant for you." She always knows how to put a soft ribbon around a plan. After I hung up, I walked through the house slowly. I touched the wooden banister. I touched the frame of the picture of the lighthouse. I touched the back of the chair where Samuel used to rest his hand when he stood to leave the table. I did not say goodbye. I said, "I will see you again," which is different. I went to the spare room and looked at the boxes. Summer, Christmas, Samuel's tools, Daniel's little league. They stood like small, tidy promises. I would not take them all. I would take a few things that could make another place feel like a room where I belong. Nora came to the doorway and leaned against it. Her hair was tucked behind one ear. She did not come in like a rush. She stood softly. "What can I do?" she asked. "Could you help me find the small suitcase?" I asked. "The one with the blue stripe." She smiled and said, "Of course." She went down the hall and came back with it. She set it on the bed and opened it. The zipper made a sound like a line drawn on paper. We put nothing in it yet. We just looked at it there, empty and ready. We stood together, not talking. It is a good thing, sometimes, to have a quiet container waiting. It lets you approach a change slowly. Daniel called from the kitchen. "Mom, Joy says she will be home all week." I smiled at how quickly he and Joy conspire when they want to hold me up. I walked back and found him holding his phone, looking relieved and unsure both at once. "We can take you on Thursday," he said. "I can rearrange work. Nora can take a half day." "Thursday is good," I said. "That gives me time to make a list and to bake a loaf of bread for you to have here." Small acts help me move through big openings. We did not tell Lily everything right away. We waited until after dinner, when she had soup in her belly and softness in her eyes. "Grandma will visit Aunt Joy for a little while," Daniel said. "You can visit too and call and send pictures." Lily looked at me. "Will you read me stories still?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I will read on the phone if we need to, and you will show me your new drawings." She nodded, satisfied. Children accept movement when they trust the steady people will stay steady. That night, I folded the dish towel as I always do. I laid it on the oven handle. My hands knew the motion. The cotton smoothed under my palms. The kitchen light made a warm circle on the counter. The clock in the hallway ticked the same way it did yesterday and the day before. I stood there and listened, to the hum of the house, to my own breath, to the small, brave choice that had settled in me. There were no slammed doors. There were no harsh voices. There were only breaths and the sound of the clock. And for the first time in days, I let myself think not just about loss, but about carrying. The stories, the softness, the things that fit in a small suitcase and in a big heart. I packed with care. I opened the small suitcase with the blue stripe and let the zipper's sound mark the start. I stood in my room and looked around at the things that made this space mine. I chose as if I were choosing which parts of my heart to carry. I moved slowly. I breathed between each choice. First, I took my blue cup. I washed it, dried it, and held it up to the light. The color was steady and calm, the way the sky looks when the day has made its peace. I wrapped the cup in a soft dish towel, the one with a faint yellow border. I placed it in the corner of the suitcase and tucked the edges around it like a blanket. I picked up Samuel's pencil tin next. It still had the tiny heart-shaped paperclip inside, and the short yellow pencils looked like old friends. I ran my finger over the lid and felt the small dent. "You again," I said softly, to the dent. I set the tin near the cup and felt something settle in me, the way a book closes when the last page has been read and loved. On the dresser, I kept Lily's drawing of a house with a yellow door. The sun she drew sat over the roof with a happy face. The windows spilled light as if the house had laughter inside it. I slid the drawing into a sleeve of clear plastic to protect it. I placed it gently on top of the clothes I had folded. It looked like it was still shining, even without tape to hold it to a wall. I found the small red scarf at the back of the closet. It still held a whisper of my perfume from winters when we went to the market and came home with cold noses and warm bread. I lifted it to my face, and there was the past, soft and kind. I folded the scarf twice, then once more, and laid it near the pencil tin, like a quiet promise. I took 2 sweaters, not 3. I took the book I am always halfway through. I took a photo of Daniel at 3 with jam on his cheek and a grin that made you believe anything could be fixed. I took a little jar of tea leaves because tea helps even a new room feel like a home. Everything else I looked at and thanked, then left. I left the heavy furniture. I left the couch that knew the shape of our backs. I left the bookshelf that almost tipped once and made us laugh as we caught it with our hands and our bodies. I left the dining table where Daniel did homework and made soft pencil marks I can still see if I tilt my head. I ran my hand along the table's edge. "Thank you," I whispered, so only the wood could hear. I left the clock that ticks slow and kind. I left the lamp by the window that makes a warm circle in the evening. I left the little rug that knows the shape of the cat's sleep. Houses hold what we cannot carry. It is good to let them. When Thursday came, the house was ready in a way that happens when you have decided something, and the rooms decide to help you. Daniel carried my small suitcase down the stairs like it was heavier than it was. He is careful that way. Lily watched from the bottom step, her hands twisted together like a rope. "Are you going on a trip?" she asked. "I am going to stay with Aunt Joy for a little while," I said. "You will visit. We will read stories. We will eat cookies we should not eat before dinner." She ran to me and wrapped her arms around my waist. Her small body pressed into mine. "Can I visit?" she asked into my sweater. "Always," I said. "Bring your drawings. Bring the ones with the bright windows." She nodded and held on 2 seconds longer, the way children do when they are memorizing a hug. Nora stood in the doorway. The light behind her made a gentle halo, and she looked both steady and soft. "Me," she said. The word carried everything. "I am sorry." "I know," I said. I meant it. I looked at her and held her eyes. "We are going to be all right." She nodded and took a breath. Sometimes that is all we can do when we have used too many words already. Breathe and trust. We took one more slow walk through the rooms, not to say goodbye, but to say thank you. Daniel held the door while I put on my shoes. The porch light was off because it was still day, but I could feel it waiting for evening like a faithful friend. I stepped down carefully and heard the stairs squeak at the top of the flight through the open door. I smiled at that sound like a person you love who says your name from another room. In the car, the world moved past in familiar pieces. The bakery, the bus stop, the corner where the maple tree drops a lazy carpet of leaves each fall. We did not talk much. My hands rested in my lap. I felt the faint edges of the pencil tin through the suitcase fabric and felt better. Joy's apartment smelled like citrus and new paint. The hall was bright and clean. On her windowsill, plants leaned toward the sun as if they were listening to music. She opened her door before I knocked twice. "There you are," she said, like I was a story she had been waiting to hear the end of. "We'll make space," Joy said. She always says that when someone comes to her. She took my bag and put it by the chair. She opened a dresser drawer and cleared it without a word. She moved a stack of magazines, not with fuss, but with purpose. This is love made of actions. She made tea without asking first. She knows what to do when life feels tender. We sat at her small table and sipped. The citrus sent from the bowl of oranges on the counter mixed with the tea, and it smelled like a promise of better days. That first night, I slept in her spare room with the window open a crack. The air felt new. The sounds were different but kind. Somewhere, a train moved far away like a soft thought. I slept in pieces and woke with my hands flat on the blanket, calm. In the morning, Joy put on her shoes and said, "Walk!" I nodded. We took the path to the lake. The water was quiet, the way water is when it has decided to breathe with you. We found a bench under the willow and sat. The long leaves made a curtain that moved the whole world a little softer. "Count the ducks," Joy said. She knows I like small tasks. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A pair of ducks moved together like a pair of hands. Another one floated alone, content. I breathed. I let the air in and out. I did not hurry the breath. We made a small routine. Morning walks to the lake, even if it was only for 10 minutes. We sat on the same bench when it was free, and we did not mind when it was not. We watched the water change colors with the sky. We counted ducks or did not. We let the willow's long fingers brush the air. Joy told me about the community center near her place. "They need someone to read to the children on Tuesdays," she said. "You always had a way with little ones. Your voice is the right kind of soft." "Do you think they would want me?" I asked, quiet. "I think they have been waiting for someone like you," she said. We walked there the next day. The building was simple, with bright drawings taped to the windows. Inside, a woman with kind eyes and a cardigan with a missing button greeted us. "I'm Alina," she said. Her smile was ease itself. "We've been waiting for someone like you." I felt my shoulders drop a little, the way they do when something fits. We stood at a low shelf and picked a stack of picture books together. On Tuesday, I sat on a rug with children who smelled like crayons and soap in school. I opened a book about a bear who could not find his hat. I read slowly. I pointed at pictures. I left space for little voices. "Again," one child said when I finished. Alina laughed and said, "We always have time for again with me." I read it again, and this time I made my bear voice a little more bare and a little less shy. The children leaned in. I felt something in my chest unknot. A few weeks passed. I cooked for Joy and she cooked for me. We watched shows where no one yelled. We folded laundry together and did not talk about heavy things unless they stood right in front of us and asked to be seen. Even then, we used small words. We used our eyes and our hands as much as our mouths. After a few weeks, Joy sat down with me at the table. "Do you want your own place nearby?" she asked. She said it gently, like she was offering me a chair after a long standing. "You are welcome here as long as you want, but I wonder if you are ready to make a small nest." "I think I am," I said. The answer surprised me by how steady it was. A small place, quiet, with a window that gets good light. We looked at a few apartments together. We said no to ones that were too dark or too loud. Then we found a one-bedroom on the second floor of a building with wide steps. The manager opened the door, and the first thing I saw was the window that faced west. In the late afternoon, the light poured in like warm milk. It filled the room in a way that made the floor look kind. The kitchen was small but clean. The bedroom had a closet that would hold exactly what I had chosen to carry. "This is it," I said, not too loud. Joy smiled and squeezed my hand. "This is it," she echoed. The paperwork was simple. The rent was something I could manage. The man at the desk explained where the mailbox was and that the hot water liked to think before it worked. I nodded. I can wait for hot water. Waiting and I are old friends. Moving in did not take much. Joy brought a small pot and a pan. I brought my blue cup. I placed it on the counter beside the sink. I set Samuel's pencil tin on the windowsill where the light could touch it in the late day. I pinned Lily's drawing above the table with 2 small tacks, and the yellow door made the room look open. I draped the red scarf over the back of the chair so it would be warm when I sat. I put my sweaters in the drawer Joy had cleared for me once, as if the drawer knew where my sweaters belonged even in a new place. I stood in the middle of the room and turned once, slowly. Quiet feels different when it is yours. That first afternoon, I made tea. I poured it into my blue cup. I stood by the window and let the warm light pour in. It touched my hands, and I felt like the room had put its palm on mine. I whispered, "Hello," not to anyone in particular. The room held me. On the first Sunday, Daniel called. He always calls on Sundays now. The ring came through gentle and sure. "Hi, Mom," he said. "How is the new place?" "Good," I said. "The light is nice. The window faces west. I can see the top of a tree and a slice of sky." He sent a picture of Lily on the swing at the park. Her braids flew out like flags and her mouth was a circle of joy. He sent another of the porch railing at home. "We painted it," he wrote. "Nora picked the color. She said it should look like fresh cream." The paint was new and clean, and the house looked like it had slept well and woken up with a plan. I looked at the picture and felt no sting. I felt something like relief. The house was becoming theirs in the way a place becomes itself again after a big wind. I could love that from here. On Tuesday, a text from Nora came through while I was chopping carrots. It was a picture of a pot on the stove. A bay leaf rested on top like a small green boat. "I tried your trick with the bay leaf," she wrote. "It tastes like you." I laughed out loud, a short, bright laugh that surprised me. Then, for reasons that were not hard to guess, I cried. The laugh and the tears were both true. When I finished crying, I wiped my face and laughed again, softer at myself. I wrote back, "Add a little lemon at the end, just a squeeze." She replied with a heart and wrote, "Thank you." I leaned against the counter and let the words sit with me. Gratitude is a warm blanket that fits most chairs. A week later, I went to see Mr. Patel to sign a small paper for the annuity. The office still smelled like lemon polish and paper. The clock still ticked in a patient way. Mr. Patel smiled when he saw me. "Me," he said. "We have the monthly support all set. It will come on the 1st of each month. It should be enough for rent and groceries." "Thank you," I said. "Samuel planned for me." It felt good to say it out loud to someone who knew him, even in the way a lawyer knows a man. Through papers and signatures and a steady voice. Mr. Patel nodded. "He did," he said. "He loved you and he trusted your strength." I held the pen and signed where he showed me. The ink looked new and dark on the paper. It felt like a line that could hold. Back in my little kitchen, on the first day the money came in, I stood by the window and spoke to the air. "You planned for me," I told Samuel. "You did not leave me alone." The room did not answer, but I felt the kind of quiet you feel when the right thing has happened at the right time. My days began to take a new shape. In the mornings, I made toast and listened to birds I did not yet know by name. I watered the one plant Joy insisted I take, a small green thing that seems to like the way I talk to it. On Tuesdays, I walked to the community center. Bear Hat was always on the list, and I tried a new book each week too, because new is good when it arrives gently. After lunch, I took a short nap or wrote a letter or folded the same 2 tea towels because folding is a thing my hands like to do when my mind is making new maps. In the late afternoon, the light poured in, warm and forgiving. I sat in it with my blue cup and let it fill me. The memories arrived like soft birds. They landed on the windowsill of my mind and stayed for a while. I did not chase them away. I did not chain them either. When they were ready to leave, I watched them go. I waved with my heart. One afternoon, a memory settled deeper than most. It was Samuel sitting on the back steps, rubbing his knees. "Me, this is the good part," he said. "Right here." I looked around my new room, at the pencil tin, at the drawing with the yellow door, at the plant with leaves that leaned toward the window. "Right here," I echoed, and the words did not crack. I understood more clearly now what he had done and why. He did not choose the house over me. He chose a path that cared for all of us. He gave the young family ground to stand on, and he trusted me to carry what could not be written in a deed. He trusted me with the soft, the quiet, the steady. He trusted me to keep the memories safe. One Friday, an invitation came from Daniel. "Sunday dinner?" he asked. 6 o'clock. Lily is making the salad." I hesitated. The picture of the porch railing was still in my mind. The line from the hallway still lived in a thin place in my chest, but I typed, "Yes," and sent it before I could tuck myself away. Walking up to the house, I felt the ground remember my feet. The porch looked brighter with its new coat of paint. The entry rug was different. It had a small pattern like dashes. It looked like rain in a storybook. I liked it. I opened the door and felt the air inside shift and welcome me. The kitchen had a new dish rack. The magnets on the fridge were rearranged. Lily's drawings had multiplied and climbed higher up the door. Some of the tape lines were straight now, not too straight, just proud. I stood and looked for a moment, like a museum visitor with a small, happy heart. I set my bag down and breathed in the smell of onions and butter. Nora turned from the stove and smiled. "Hi," she said. She stepped toward me and hugged me without words. I hugged her back. We stayed there a second longer than you would with someone you did not need to forgive. She pulled back and pointed to the counter. "The whisk lives in the first drawer now," she said with a half laugh. I laughed too. It was small, but it was true. "I wrote it on a sticky note once," I said. "I think it saved me." We set the table together, like we had always done. I put the forks down and looked at my hand on the wood, remembering how it felt to say thank you to this table. Daniel came in with a pitcher of water and kissed my cheek. "Hi, Mom," he said. Lily ran in with a bowl of salad. "I put the tomatoes on the bottom because they are heavy," she said, proud. "Good thinking," I said. She placed the bowl on the table and then put her small hand in mine. "Grandma, can you sit by me?" she asked. "Always," I said. We ate simple food, pot roast and potatoes, a salad with tomatoes that wore the dressing like a shiny coat, bread that was a little too warm to slice neat, which is the best kind. We talked about school and the ducks at the lake and the color of the porch railing. No big words came to the table. We did not pull on old threads. We looked at each other and at the food and at the small hands that reached for more. After dinner, I stood at the sink and washed a few plates. The water ran and the sound was the same. The squeak in the stair was still there, high and faithful. I looked toward it and smiled. "Hello," I said in my mind. "Old friend." We made tea and sat for a minute in the living room. Lily brought me a new drawing. This one had a house with a yellow door and 4 stick people holding hands. A small cat sat on the roof with a smile. "Beautiful," I said. "I love the cat's smile." Daniel poured water for all of us. Nora set down a bowl of salad someone might want more of. Lily leaned against me and told me the story of the day with extra parts added for excitement. We did not talk about burden. We did not use big words. We allowed ourselves to reach for the right next thing. It felt like stepping stones across a shallow river. Solid, close, enough. When it was time to go, Nora walked me to the door. We both stood there for a second, looking at the porch light, now on, leaning just a little like it always did. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for asking," I said. We hugged again, a quiet hug, an everyday hug. It tasted like tea and felt like a promise. Back in my apartment, I took off my shoes and walked to the window. The light had faded, but the west held a soft echo of the day. I touched the pencil tin and the red scarf. I set my blue cup on the counter for the morning. I sat and let the stillness surround me. The days continued. Daniel called on Sundays. He sent photos of Lily on the swing, on the grass, under a fort made of chairs and blankets. "She can build things," I texted. "Like her dad." He replied with a small heart and a picture of Lily wearing a paper crown. Nora sent me soup pictures sometimes. "I added lemon," she wrote once, "and I remembered to take the bay leaf out." I wrote back, "You are a fast learner." We both knew we were talking about more than soup. I kept reading at the community center. The children learned my name and called it even on days I was not there. "Me," they would say, as if it were a short song. We read about bears and hats and ducks and tiny dragons. We read about homes and doors and windows and light. I added a book about a grandmother who keeps a box of buttons. I told Alina that every button tells a story. Alina said, "So do you." Sometimes, on my way home, I bought a small bunch of flowers that looked like they were trying their best. I put them in a jar on the table under Lily's drawing. The yellow door in the drawing seemed to smile at them. The room felt pleased. When the first cold wind came, I pulled the red scarf from the chair and wrapped it around my neck. It smelled like those winters that lived in the closet. I walked to the lake and sat on the bench under the willow. The ducks were fewer, but they still moved with calm purpose. I counted them anyway. 3, 2, 1. The water nodded at me. I nodded back. Joy and I made soup together on a Saturday. We chopped and stirred and told the same story about the time the power went out, and we made a tent in the living room with quilts and chairs. We laughed in the exact same place we always laugh. It felt good to know where the laugh would fall. I kept a small list on my fridge. It said, tea, bread, apples, call Lily, Tuesday, books, water plant. I checked things off with a pencil from Samuel's tin. Each check looked like a little flag saying, you are here. I forgave in pieces, not all at once, not like a light switched on. Forgiveness for me is a practice. It is the way I put plates on a rack with space between them so they can dry well and not cling. It is the way I fold the dish towel even when no one is coming over. It is the way I choose the next right thing and then the next, without making a list of all the wrong things. I do not talk much about the word I heard in the kitchen. I am not hiding from it, and I am not feeding it. It is a word that is learning to be quiet in my house. When it wants to be loud, I pour tea and sit by the window and look at the drawing with the yellow door. I ask myself, what is true right now? The answer is usually something small and steady. You are warm. You are held by a chair. Someone loves you. You can love back. On a rainy afternoon, I opened Samuel's letter again. The paper had grown softer at the fold. I read the lines I know by heart now. I am not leaving you, me. I am giving them a chance to stand. What we are is not the roof. The words did not make me cry. They made me breathe deeper. They made me feel my feet on the floor. I thought of the day in Mr. Patel's office, the lemon polish and the clock. I thought of the rain and the umbrella and the quiet ride home. I thought of the envelope on my bedside table and the drop of water on my thumb. I thought of the choices we made at the table with the tea and the sugar. I felt grateful we had chosen the soft path. On another Sunday, another invitation came. Come again, Daniel wrote. Lily wants to show you her fort. I went. The house felt familiar and new. The paint was brighter. The entry rug was different. The squeak in the stair was still mine to hear and to love. Nora handed me the whisk when I reached into the wrong drawer out of habit. It's still here, she said, eyes kind. First drawer. We both smiled at the old joke made new again. After dinner, I stood by the sink and dried a plate. I set it in the cupboard where I knew it belonged now. I felt no ache in the movement. The room and I had made our peace, or maybe we had made a bridge. These are bridges. Lily shows me a drawing. I say it is beautiful. Daniel pours water. Nora sets down a bowl of salad. I lift my cup. We sit in the same room and let our bodies teach our hearts that we are safe. When I left that night, Lily put a sticker on my hand. So you will not forget me, she said. Impossible, I said, and I meant it. The sticker was a small yellow star. It looked brave. Back at home, I washed my hands before bed and left the sticker on. I climbed into bed with the star still bright on my skin. I turned off the light and lay in the soft dark, listening to the small sounds of the building settling, of the night making room for sleep. Somewhere, a neighbor laughed. Somewhere, a car door closed. My heart rested. In the morning, I made tea. I poured it into my blue cup. I took the pencil tin down and sharpened one of the short pencils carefully. The shavings curled like little wooden ribbons. I wrote one line on a piece of paper and stuck it on the wall above my small table. It said, "Keep the memories safe." I stood back and read the words out loud once. The room held them for me. I pulled the red scarf around my shoulders and stepped into the day, steady on my feet, open to the quiet, ready to cross the next small bridge with the people I love. I sit by my new window at sunset. The light rests on the rim of my blue cup. It makes a thin gold ring I could almost lift with my finger. The room is quiet in a way that feels kind. I think of the yellow house. I think of the porch light and the squeaky stair and the way the kitchen held the sound of spoons. I think of Samuel's note, "Keep the memories safe." The day lets go in small pieces. A bird crosses the square of sky I can see. Someone down the hall laughs once and then stops. The plant on my windowsill leans toward the last of the light the way it always does, patient and sure. I breathe in. I breathe out. I let the room hold me. This is what the house taught me. A house keeps sound and light and scratches on a doorframe. It keeps chalk dust and rain in the hallway and a mark where a child measured his growing. It keeps the way a chair sits slightly crooked after a long talk. But a home lives in the people who stand inside it. It lives in laughter that bubbles up from the same old joke. It lives in the whisper a parent speaks at a doorway before the light goes off. Home lives in soup bowls passed from hand to hand. in folded towels still warm from the dryer, in a child's quiet song as she lines up seashells and gives them names. Home is a hand on your back when you are tired. It is the soft good night that holds both rest and promise. It is voices and footsteps and the sound of someone washing a dish so you will not have to. The house is theirs, he said. I resisted the words at first. I wanted the roof to be a shield against everything. I wanted the walls to mean we were still the same. Now I see the wisdom hidden in his sentence. He gave our son a place to stand. He gave Nora room to grow her careful plans. He made space for Lily to draw new windows with more light. And he trusted me to carry what does not break, love. I found myself where I did not expect to be, in a small apartment that grows warm at 4 o'clock. In a chair with a red scarf I can pull close if the air turns cool. In a routine that holds me the way a steady hand holds a cup. I found myself in a circle of children at the community center who lean into my stories and ask me to read the bare book again. Their eyes remind me that soft voices can fill a room. To you listening now, I want to say this. If you are facing a door that is closing, you are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to rest your hand on the wood and stand there for a while. You are allowed to say, I am not ready, and wait until you are. Then, when you can, turn and look at the other doors, the small ones that open quietly, the ones that do not call attention to themselves, the ones that fit your hand. Do not rush. You can bring your cup. You can bring one picture and a scarf. You can bring a sentence that steadies you. You can bring the smell of cinnamon and the sound of a clock that ticks a little slow. Hope does not always shout. Sometimes it sits beside you on a bench under a willow and lets you count ducks. Sometimes it is a phone call on Sunday. Sometimes it is a photo of a child on a swing, hair flying like flags. One day you will laugh again in a kitchen that smells like cinnamon. You will laugh at a small thing, at a whisk in the wrong drawer, at a cat who chooses a new favorite seat, at a word a child says in a way that makes it brand new. One day, the word home will feel light in your mouth. It will feel like breath. It will not be tied to one address. It will be tied to the people you love and the way you love them. I go back sometimes. The house feels familiar and new. The paint is brighter. The entry rug has a neat pattern. The squeak in the stair is still there, faithful as a friend. I smile at it in my heart. Nora tells me where the whisk lives now. We both laugh. It is small, but it is true. We set bowls on the table and pour water and pass the bread. We do not need big words. We choose the next good thing and then the next. At home in my small place, the memories come like soft birds. They land on the edge of the afternoon and stay as long as they need. I do not chase them. I let them drink from the quiet. I fold the dish towel even when there are no dishes. I touch the pencil tin and feel the steadiness of a hand that used to fix squeaks with a whisper of graphite. I tell myself, be water, not stone, and I feel the room relax. I am at peace with the will. I am at peace with what the papers said and what the letter held. He did not choose a house over a heart. He trusted that love could move from room to room without losing itself. He trusted that what we are is not the roof. He was right. What is solid is inside us. It walks with us. It sits in our cups. It sings in our kitchens and our stories and our quiet. Thank you for sitting with me. Thank you for letting my story touch your evening. Maybe you are in your own kitchen now. Maybe your light is falling across a table where someone you love has left a small mess you will not mind cleaning. May your memories be soft and your steps be steady. And if you are holding onto a house too tightly, remember this: what is yours is what you carry inside. Keep the memories safe. The rest can find its way.